Well, hey friends, welcome to the Everyday Mulemanship Podcast. I'm Ty Evans, and today we got a awesome guest on, an old friend of mine, Richard Reese from Tennessee. Um, pretty much everybody knows about Reese Brothers Mule Cells, and he's a huge part of that. So, Richard, man, welcome to the show.
Hey Ty.
Appreciate you doing this. So we met. I think we initially met at Bishop Mule Days. I'm pretty sure it was Bishop Mule Days. Do you remember when we met?
I can't remember if it was Bishop or if he came back to our cell in Shelbyville.
Yeah, maybe the first time it was the cell at
I
Shelbyville.
can't, it's been a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I was thinking about that. I was like, well, because then you used to. Do you still go out to Bishop?
No,
To
we haven't been out there and we haven't been out there in 5 years, I guess. Five, six
yeah,
years.
that's probably about the same for me too. It's been a little while, but I know used to bring a load of mules out there and have some fun and but you guys are busy. You got sales going on all the time, and you got life and family, and you got a lot going on. So,
Yeah.
um, for my listeners, Richard, maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit. Maybe most people will know Reese Brothers. They recognize that you guys do a good job with advertising and your marketing. But maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself here and tell them about you and your family.
Well, I've got two kids. I got a little girl, Lainey. She'll turn 3 next month. And then my son Leo, he'll be 7 in October. My wife, Brittany. Um, I'm fourth generation in the mule industry. Um, the mule thing started off with my great grandfather, and he would load up mules on rail cars and send them to Atlanta and Missouri, or he would hop on the train, go out to Missouri, buy the mules, and then he would bring them back to Tennessee, and he would ship them south on rail cars, and then just kind of grew from that. Um, we my kids, they enjoy it. We had oh they really enjoy the livestock side of things. They're not quite ready to just turn loose and run wild with them, but they're always around the barn chasing cats and just being little farm kids.
Heck yeah. So, hey, let's go back to your second great grandfather. So, how long ago was that? Do you know what
That was in the
years that would be?
1920s.
Wow.
We've been in the auction business since 1920, and they we've been in the auction business since 1920. Not really sure um, about after that, but I know we've held auctions and transported mules since then.
Oh yeah, man. That's a long time selling mules. That's pretty cool.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, shoot, there was a lot of mules used in World War II. Like, did your grandpa ship for the army or anything like that?
They did not. They shipped for the army, but not in World War II. Is when the Afghans were fighting the Russians.
Mm.
My I guess uh, my grandfather's brother, Hub, and my dad, my uncle, they had a contract with the government for like 1,200 mules, and they would put them on airplanes and fly them over in Afghanistan, and then they would take those mules and go to the tops of the mountains and try to shoot down helicopters.
That's
It's pretty
awesome.
neat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So 1,200 meals. What were the requirements like for these meals? These are these mostly packed meals, or are guys riding these meals there?
No, these were counterfeit. The country got cleaned up. They were mules that, I mean, they were on a one-way ticket. They would get them to the top of those mountains, and they would use them for food. Um, it was not a but I'm not sure. My dad always joked about it and said if there was one that would kick or bite or paw you, they sent it. Um, and but um, Yeah, they were not. They were just strictly pack mules. A lot of
Mhm.
just kind of old timey mean mules. You know.
So used them for packing, got their gear up there, and then when they got hungry, that was dinner, huh?
That was dinner. Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
Man, that is wild. So, I mean, I'm not up to date on all my war history, the years. Like when would that be? The Afghans, the Russians fighting? Like,
I,
is that
I'm
60s? I don't know.
I'm really not sure. It would have had to been. I'm not sure. I could probably Google it here in a minute.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I just
That would time frame. I would I would say 60s, early 70s.
mm,
It could have been actually could have been in the 80s because I don't believe my grandfather was alive, and I think he passed away maybe in 79.
mm.
So it would have been in the 80s, I think.
So would that have been like a contract that your grandpa filled for our government um
Yes, sir.
to give that to the to those people?
Yes, sir. They flew him out of um, all the big. There's a big army base north west of here. They would fly them. We would truck them to that. We would truck them to that facility. They would put them in kind of big cargo shipping container type things, and then they would have a vet fly over with them, and then they would come back.
Wow, that's a heck of a deal.
Yeah, yeah.
1,200 of them. So your grandpa, he was probably going all over trying to find 1,200 head of mules like that, huh?
Well, what they would do, and it wasn't my grandfather, it was my great uncle and my
Oh, your great
dad.
uncle. Yeah.
It was my great uncle, my dad, and my uncle.
Mm,
Um, and then what they would do, they just had a bounty on them. They would say, give you so much money delivered to our house.
mm.
And so people would just load up their straight deck trucks and come this away.
So if you got a mule you don't want, hey, just let's take
Yeah,
it. Let's
yeah,
take it
pretty
to
much,
Reese's.
pretty
And
much.
wow, man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you said, one way ticket. They didn't come back, huh?
No, no. And I'm sure some of them did, but I'd say most of them, you know, everything I've always heard was once they went up, they just kind of were there type thing. They didn't, but I'm sure they wasn't all the case in all of them, but could have been for most.
Yeah, that's interesting. So after that, I guess your dad and your uncle kind of they took over, right? And are they the ones that really started? Like, where did the auctions in Tennessee really kick off? Was it with them that it became popular, or where
It
did
was
that begin?
it was with my granddaddy and my great uncle. They had a sale in Columbia there where they have the Columbia Mule Days, and they
Mm,
also had a sale in Lebanon. And then when my grandfather died, everything kind of got split up between my great uncle and his son, and my dad and my uncle, Rufus and Dickie. And so then they bounced around to a couple different auction facilities. Kind of the heyday for Rufus and my uncle were at Dixon. We would have 11, 1,200 head. We'd have 600, 900 colts at our January sale. Um, but those numbers aren't out there like that anymore. It's really hard to get numbers. Um, you can't, about the only way you can get those numbers is promise people unrealistic expectations, and then if you don't get through, you don't pull through for them, you've got a mad customer. So it's really the auction thing is you've got Facebook, you've got different places like that, and it's really hard to sell. It's hard to have a big sale anymore because people, you know, you can reach the platform. It's go outside, take a picture of it, and you can have a mule online for sale in 2 minutes. Um, so that's kind of hurt the industry on the auction side of it. That's actually really killed the industry on the auction side of it. But you gotta go with the times, and um, but it just kind of is what it is.
Well, that's something that we could talk about, and you would know a lot about this. Like just the mule industry, as a business and how things are going, man. Like you've seen a lot of changes in your life. You and I are about the same age, and I'm sure your dad and your uncle they've seen a ton of changes in their life as well. But talk about some of those changes that you've seen. You mentioned with the advent of social media. You're right. We could, I mean, you can have a mule on there in a couple of minutes, and if somebody's crazy enough to buy it online, it's
Yeah,
which I have my own opinions on that, Richard,
yeah,
about
I do
buying
too.
stuff online. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm okay with people advertising, like, yeah, advertise, but I really don't like people buying just stuff online, like without going there, seeing it, touching it, riding it,
Absolutely.
being around it. And I guess I have that attitude, Richard, because people come to my clinics every week and same old story. They bought this mule online, and I say, "Well,
Yeah.
did you go ride it?" "Well, no, but the seller said." I'm like, and something I've learned too is and you can give me your 2 cents on this too, but I'm pretty optimistic. Like I think, and I'm pretty positive. I think most people are honest. Like I have a default honesty setting, right? So, but what I've learned is people have different standards. So when like, Susie is buying a mule from Joe and Joe says, "Oh yeah, it's good enough for kids or anybody." Well, Susie doesn't know that Joe's kids are a bunch of bronc riders.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, they've been
Great for
roping
kids. Well,
dog.
yeah, your kids are freaking tough.
Yeah, they've been roping dogs before they had diapers on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a big difference too. And then, the people come away from that like, "Oh, well, I was lied to." Well, no, I mean, I'm not arguing that they don't get lied to. That happens. You and I both know that happens. But I think most of the time it's a misunderstanding of standards when people don't buy in person.
Oh, yeah. Um, you can look at some of these guys that are just really good hands and they can have this mule. They can take, we've seen it all. We have
Mhm.
seen every aspect of it you could ever see. And I could talk about this for a long time. You can take a mule, I can take a mule and I can get along with it. And I'm not a great rider. I'm not a trainer. I can put miles on them. That's it. But I can take a mule that I can get along with and I can sell it to a customer and that mule will start bullying them. And then the next thing you know, that just builds and builds and builds. We see stuff like that all the time. But I guess where I'm trying to go, you get these people that are really good at riding. They're great trainers. They put a lot of time with these mules. They not necessarily are finishing the mule, but they get the mule buffaloed. They get the mule kind of bullied around where it'll lope circles, walk, trot, canter, lay down, roll over, shake your hand, all that good stuff. And then they sell it to the customer that literally needs a 15-year-old mule that doesn't want you have to spank on its butt to make it trot. And they can't figure out why they can't get along with it. You know, that is, I don't know. I just, when the internet and stuff first started coming out, we'd get phone calls all of the time. Hey, I bought a mule off of such and such. It's nothing. I can't do anything with it. They sold it to me with no guarantee. That I've got this mule I can't touch. What can I do with it? Well, you need to take it to a sale and tell people the truth about it and go on about your business. You know, I've just seen there's so many people that get scalped. And when they come to us, they want us, they paid $6,000 for this mule that they can't catch. It won't stand to get on, XYZ. And we have, they want to trade it in on something. And then they look at us silly when we offer them $1,500 for it, pack mule price,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
Man, I
I
did
don't
a
know.
I did an episode, I don't know, like a couple years ago on this very thing. And I'm pretty well, you know me, I'm pretty like hard on this. Like, I don't care if you paid $15,000 for that thing. If it's bucking you off, it's not worth anything.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I said this, and I'll probably get comments on this episode too, that no, you don't get to sell that. Like, it's not, you don't get your money back for that, you know.
Mhm.
And then my my take on it too is like, okay, well, you got screwed over, and now you want to screw somebody else over. Like, you're gonna do the same
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
complaining to me about,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like, just take, and I tell people, hey, that was a valuable piece of education that you just gained. Like,
Mhm.
think of it like you paid for school. You
Oh,
donate five
absolutely.
thousand bucks for that meal that you're not getting along with, and you kind of feel like you got taken. Well, chalk it up to a lesson. That's your $5,000 lesson or whatever.
Yeah.
And don't make that mistake again. But
Oh,
people don't
yeah.
like to hear that. They don't like to hear that.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking to a guy right now out of South Georgia. He came to the auction. He bought a 8-month-old mule colt, and my dad stopped the sale. They were starting to sell it. They were on the money, and my dad noticed that nobody said the mule was lame. My dad stopped the sale and said, "Hey, this mule is off in its front end. Buyer beware." The seller pops up and says, "Oh, it's not lame. Our farrier trimmed it too close." Well, the mule, I don't know what happened to the mule. I don't know if it stayed in the barn its whole life and never had a chance to eat away its hooves. I don't know what happened, but the mule definitely had some soundness issues on all 4 feet. His hoofs were really bad, horrible. And so the sale was on a Saturday. So I get a phone call Monday morning, and this guy's like, "Hey, I bought a mule up there, drove 9 hours. I was looking for something. This mule was in my price range. I bought it. Um, I feel like I got taken. I took it to my farrier. My farrier lives right down the road. Took it to him Sunday. He said the mule had been foundered, this and that." And luckily the mule was not very expensive. I think it cost like 960. Um, and we're gonna just shoot that guy back a check. But you think like you can't hold everybody's hand.
Yeah.
I was like, "Sir, we stopped the sale and said this." And then he said, "Well, the owner said this." I said, "Yeah, the owner would say about anything in order to get rid of this mule." And it was wrong on both ends of them. And the consigner, he was a new consigner. He's going to start bringing a lot of colts to our sale. So we're going to try to take care of him and not go back on him. But, it's like at what point you got to have a little common sense about you when you buy
Yeah.
these things.
Well, and you guys are in a precarious situation being the middleman.
Absolutely. It's not I don't, the middleman gets the screws most of the time.
Yeah. So I love coming to your sales. It's been a couple years now. Yeah, I think it's been 2, 3 years since I've been to one of your sales, but I enjoy them. If anything, for just the people watching too. Like, it's a good time
Oh,
watching
yeah.
all the happenings on both the seller end and the buyer's end. Like, um, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there, and you know what what are you seeing? Because this podcast is supposed to be educational. Like, what are some of the suggestions you would give to buyers? Let's pick on the buyers for a minute, because we're gonna pick on buyers and sellers here. But on the buyer's end, like, what's some common mistakes that you see? What are some suggestions you'd give buyers coming to an auction? Let's start with that.
If I was going to an auction to buy something and I wasn't in the industry and I was looking for something to buy for myself and to keep forever, I would show up the day before the sale even started. I would be the first one there. And the first day, I don't even know if they would ask who's that weird guy walking around looking at everything. I wouldn't, I would just be very observant. And I would, I'd pay attention. I'd get me 4 or 5 picked out. And, if I would go ride them, I would go after everybody left, I would go in the stall with them. I'd handle their feet. I would see how they move to pressure. I would touch, I'd touch them from nose to tail. Um, and then, I would narrow that list down, and then I'd want to ride them, and I would try to be there before they got there to see them saddled. Um, Most of the time, I would say, to me, 90-95% of the time, you can tell what a mule is going to do when you saddle it. Um, if you get there and that mule's kind of antsy or high-headed, or you can watch their ears. But most time you can tell what a mule's going to do just by saddling it. Just got to pay attention. Don't tell people what you're looking for. Don't say, well, I've got a budget of this. And then another thing, um, a lot of these auctions, a lot of these auctions, they people get excited and they get anxious, and they want to bid really fast. Don't bid fast, bid slow, because that auctioneer and those ringman, that's where they thrive, is when that auction gets to rolling. They might start, they'll say they're, they say the animals, they've got $1,000 live money on it. Um, you don't want to take $1,000 jumps, because if you bid 1,000, the next person bids 2,000, you've just doubled your bid when you bid again at three. Um, just take your time. If they are not going, if it's kind of you just got to slow the bid down. You can't, you don't want to lose the mule, and the auctioneers normally count down. And you can always say, hey, like if they've got $1,000 on that mule and they're asking for 2,000, you can always tell them you'll give 1,500. They will not leave any money on the table. Now they might not take a $100 bid, up bid on a $20,000 mule, and I get that. But if you're looking in those, you know, $5,000 to $10,000 range mules, they're not going to leave any money on the table. If you told them you'd give them $1 raise, they would probably take it just to keep everything moving forward. But what I see people making the big mistake of is they just hold their hand up, and the auctioneer takes 1,000, $1,500 jumps, and the next thing you know, this person just bought a $40,000 mule.
Mm.
That's what I see. But
If
you
you
know,
if you could put something like in big bold red letters for a buyer to read at every auction, what would it be? Like what is a buyer like? Let me tell you what mine is to maybe get you thinking on it. Mine is, remember that it's a mule, okay?
uh,
Like it's a living, breathing, thinking, bleeding being, right? Like this is not a machine. It's a mule. Like it's alive, right? And I think so many people, um, especially these days with the money that's being spent on mules, it comes with an expectation that this mule has to be glorious. Like,
oh yeah,
well, I spent $20,000. This mule better know it. It better do this. It better do that. And I say, hold on, bud. That mule didn't write the check. that
yeah,
that
that's it.
mule not once did it say, "Hey, I'm a $20,000 mule." No,
Right.
especially at an auction, I tell people like, "Hey, you got to take responsibility. You are the one that set the price. The mule didn't set the price. You did. Like
Mhm.
you are the one that bid." And obviously, and here's the other thing that kind of somebody told me this once. In fact, it might have been your dad. I can't remember. But they said, you got to realize that when you win the bid, you were willing to pay more money than anybody else there.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you need to realize that nobody else thought that mule was worth that much. Only you.
Mhm.
when you won that bid. So you need to know that, right? And anyway, so those are some things that I would tell people. What do you think?
You just pay attention to the mules. Like if a mule has a sore on it, if the mule is, if a mule has a sore on it, if a mule is tied to the wall, overnight, you just got to be observant. You've got to, if you notice something there, you're definitely going to notice it when you get home.
Mm,
Um, because you've got all the distractions, you've got all the, there's a million things going on. So if you notice something at the sale, if you think, well, that mule might be a tick, that mule might be a little nervous. It could be from the sale, but it's going to come out at home too. But I guess I don't know that or just people getting ran by and just, having them just, I guess just that and um, just, you know, not knowing how to bid and when to bid and stuff like that. That would be, you could teach a seminar just on that, you know.
yeah.
Um, but
And there's I know I've been to your auction in the past, and I've done really good. I come home with a load of really good mules, and there's a lot of people out here in the West that they go out and they buy mules from you guys every year. Um, and you can find some awesome stuff, because at those sales, because there's some guys that, especially some of them backwoods guys that
yeah,
they don't have Facebook, right? They're not going to be posting online. Some of them don't even have a dang internet, they
right.
show up to the sale. Especially the Amish boys, right? They show up
Yes.
and they're not doing stuff online. Although some of them are kind of figuring some of that out. They're hiring people. I'm seeing more
Yeah.
of that. They're learning how to hire people and do that. Um, but you can find some really good ones. If you know how to look for them, and I like your suggestion about getting there early. We do clinics at a lot of these sales. We've done clinics at your sales before, and we've done clinics, like at Jake Clark's and Bryce Canyon and Salmon and all these big cells. And it's interesting when because I'm there early, right, doing the clinic. The clinic's always before the cell, and I see some stuff, right, for the better or for the worse. I see some stuff, and I see how people are preparing their meals, and I notice the care that they're putting into it. I'm like, hey, you know what? That's somebody to pay attention to.
Mhm.
They show up there, they're washing their mule, they're cleaning it up, taking care of its feet. I've seen people pull up there and they're putting fresh shoes on. They're getting this mule ready to go. And I like that. I see other people that are there early, and
Yeah.
they're just trying to burn some sweat, man. They're just like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say which cell it was, but one year we're there doing the clinic, and there's somebody running this mule up and down this wash that's kind of next to the arena, and they're running it. I mean, like, it's one thing, like, okay, well, maybe they're just working on, they just want to work on transitions, and since we're in the arena, they're out there doing their thing. But no, it went on for over an hour. I'm like, oh no, they're not working on transitions.
Okay.
And then when the sale started, somebody came up to me and said, "What do you think of that number? That mule sure seems quiet."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I bet it does seem quiet. The thing's freaking exhausted.
Oh yeah,
So,
we see it all.
oh yeah.
See it all.
What
Um,
about let's pick on sellers for a minute, man. You know, this is something I know you guys are big on, making sure sellers are doing a good job, and you need good quality sellers to show up to your sales. Um, because basically whatever people bring is what is being represented at Reese Brothers, right? So you can be pretty critical on these guys. I think that's a good thing. Like, so if I want to sell, if I want to come to a sell and I want to do good, and I want to have some success and make some money, because at the end of the day, when you're in the business, you're in it to make money, and I think that's a good thing. I like the business part of it. So what were some mistakes you see sellers make, and what are some suggestions you'd give to sellers?
Um, they don't ride them enough at home. They don't own them long enough. In our part of the country, you either have people like you either have like we have more. Well, I would venture to say we have more traders back east than you have out west. Those equine are always just kind of in a circle until they find their home. Um, the on the seller side of things, um, just got to be honest. If you've got a turd, tell people you've got a turd. If you've got a good one, just show them. You can take, you know, the, what we see a lot of times with these sellers that, they just, you know, back east, we might not have a lot of fancy riding mules, but we have pretty tolerable mules, I feel like. They're used to, they're used to Uncle Bubba riding them down the trail. They're pretty pretty desensitized for the most part. They're not going to go out there and lope circles, and there's several of them that will, but for the biggest majority of them, um, you kind of got to people. You can't take a old plow mule and make it go out there and lope circles that are pretty. Um, and we see a lot of sellers like that. They'll have some kind of draft cross mule, and they'll have it out there trying to lope circles, and the mule's just kind of washing out. It's not able to carry itself. It's short necked, just like a square. You've got to ride the mules how they want to be rode to a certain extent. Um, you can't take, there's nothing wrong with an old trail mule. That's my favorite thing to ride, just a mule go down the trail. But you can't turn an old deadhead trail mule into something that's going to be a performance type mule. And I see a lot of people that don't realize that. And, they're out there making their mule, they're out there making their mule all swish his tail and just real uncomfortable chewing on the bit, by trying to make it do something that it's just not really physically capable of doing. And I would say we see that a lot, especially out of these Amish. Um, they're buying these cheaper end mules, and they're taking them home, and they are absolutely car killing them. And that's everywhere. That's in any Amish community you go to. I don't care, Missouri, Montana, Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever you go, them guys, they ride the ever living fire out of those mules. And they um, they just try to make them do things they're not really capable of doing. And that just mule doesn't look natural at it. It doesn't matter how long they ride them. The mules just not natural at it. You got to, like, if you've got a draft cross mule, just let it go down the trail, get it really sacked out, and get it soft. Everything can be soft, and just ride the mule for what it is instead of trying to turn it into something it's not.
No, that's good. That's good advice, just generally too. You know, I like to find the best in the mule and bring out the best in them.
Right.
And you do got to push for that. You do have to test the edges to find those things. But when you find those things, I think make the best out of what they're good at. I think that's a good suggestion. Yeah, because there's plenty of mules that just don't fit the job that you're trying to get them to do.
Mhm.
Like it's just, they're not going to make it in that part of life. But um, that being said, too, uh, we can get into a lot of trouble trying to, you know, trying to
Yeah.
make something that ain't, and like you're saying, get them troubled in different ways. But yeah, that's good. I I think something I see with sellers often is they get they get too excited when there is an interested buyer. Um, like somebody comes by that shows a lot of interest and next thing you know, they're they're building up that mule more than it ought to be built up or
Mhm.
or whatever. I've got hammered on in the past, Richard, because and you know me, man. I'm pretty critical of like I have high expectations for every mule I ride, right? Like I'm gonna push the limit for sure myself, right? So we talk about trying to, make something that ain't. Well, if anybody's gonna test those boundaries, it's gonna be me for sure. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna, all right, let's see how high this thing can jump, and let's see how good it can stop, and let's see how good it can turn. And I'm gonna push that. And then when it comes to selling, I have turned so many people off when I sell mules because of my over honesty. And if that's such a thing to be over honest, maybe that sounds like a oxymoron, but like I I will tell you everything about it. Like, I mean, I'll tell you how it caught last Tuesday. Like
Right.
I'll just go into it. And I think sometimes I vomit on people, all the things that, and they're like, geez, do you even like that meal? I'm like, of course I like the meal. Like, well, it sure doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to selling, um, I absolutely, I guess, like there's a time in my life, and this is when I got to know you. You and I met at this time in my life, when I was buying and selling for a living, before I really got into doing the clinics, and it was like a paycheck to paycheck survival for me, like I need to sell this mule to pay my house payment, type of thing. And so, what I couldn't take was the returns, right? Like, okay, you sure you want to buy this mule? Because as soon as you write me this check, I'm going to the bank and this is going to be spent tomorrow. Like it's gone. Like
Right. Yeah.
there's no like savings account like where I'm just holding this because people will ask for and you guys do a great job with this, but like people would ask like, so what's your return policy? Like, what do you have? Like, do you have like a certain time? I'm like, no, man, the money's gone. Like it's gonna be gone. And so I think because of that, I was just hardcore honest, like every single
Right.
thing. And I would tell people, you come out here, and I didn't sell them at auctions much. I just sold them privately. I said, you come out here, ride this thing as much as you want.
Mm.
Practice, try it, do whatever. Let's go up on the mountain. Let's go hunting with it. Let's go do this. Let's go work cows. Whatever you want to do, let's do it. But when you write that check and you pull out the driveway, this money's spent, man, just so you know.
Yeah.
And that did help me because I rarely ever had anybody want to return. There were some that and looking back, I think it was my fault that I should have read the buyer better and not sold the mule to them. Like I should have been better at like they wanted the mule, but I think I could see that it wasn't a good fit. And I should have just been real, said, you know what, this mule ain't a good fit. But that's hindsight.
No,
So
yeah. Hindsight's always 2020.
yeah.
Yeah, our policy is we don't refund your money, but we will replace it. And you pick the first two and we pick your third. So that's kind of our policy.
I
We have
like that.
people we have people that come here and they'll buy a meal and you know, we have been focusing more on our contracts the past couple of years because the prices of meals have gotten so high. So we're just kind of focusing on the contracts. So we'll have 15 or 20, nicer meals that we'll sell through the year. But we're not selling 5, 6, 700 like we did in years past. We're selling a couple hundred a year now. And but back when we used to go to Bishop and all of that, we would have people, I have literally told people like this meal's not suited for you. Like there are no guarantees and they still buy it. Like there's no way. If somebody told me a meal wouldn't suit me, there would be no way I would buy it. Um, but we've had several people. They come, they think they know what they want. They buy it. We tell them the truth about it. We're honest about the meal. They buy it. They get it home. It does exactly what we told them it would do. They bring it back, and they get another meal. And for some reason, they don't like that one. And so the third one, we pick the third one. And most time, it's an older mule that's just a good gentle trail mule that's not going to get them in a bind. Just a solid. nothing fancy, nothing flashy, but a mule just go down the trail. Because at that point, I don't feel like they'd have any idea what they want. They want something with long ears. But
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah. So talk about those contracts a little bit. So I know are you guys still doing a lot with the Grand Canyon out there and that kind of
Yes,
stuff?
sir. Yes, sir. We sell to the south rim. We sell to the south rim of the canyon. The north rim, they come back and buy some out of our sales, and they've made enough connections. They buy some different places and stuff like that. They get them where they can find them. But we've sold to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I'm gonna guess, I would say at least. I'm not sure when we started, but I'm gonna say 35 or so years. We've
Is
had
this
that.
the national park we're talking,
No,
or is
sir.
this what is
It's
this?
for we have sold to that park service, but we don't sell to them right now. We haven't really chased that contract in a couple or several years, but we sell to Xanterra.
Mm.
It's a private concession located there. They run all the concessions at the South Rim. Um, we sell some pack mules up into Montana for the going to the Bob Marsh. We sold some this past year over to Inyo Forest. Um, but yeah, I don't know, there's probably, I don't know, five or six, seven different forests we sell to.
Nice. So these people will they'll contact you guys, say, "Hey, I want, 20 head. I need 20 head and this is what I want." And then you guys are going out there finding those specifics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In the Park Service and the Forest Service, um, they normally, most of the time, they'll stay, but they're funny. They'll either, that stuff has to go out to contracting. So when they'll do is they'll get three or four Forest Service and they'll wrap everything underneath one contract. And then so, you'll send 10 mules out there, and those 10 mules will go like five different directions when
Mm.
they get there. Um, so it's kind of hard to keep track of where they all exactly go, but they kind of divvy them out.
Yeah, you guys like doing those contracts better than private sales. Is that
Absolutely.
much easier?
Yeah, that's so much easier. The money is not as good, but the headaches, there's no headaches.
Mm.
You're selling these mules to people that are capable. Um, we tell them, like they are, and if they don't want it, that's fine. They don't have to take it. But there's just you're dealing with people that deal with livestock, on a daily basis. That's always a little easier to me than somebody that's going to ride the mule once a month or once a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Different type of deal for sure.
Mhm.
Tell me about the mule industry, man. Like, you have seen a lot in your life. So like, tell me about the last decade, and then what do you think the next decade is going to bring? Let's talk about the industry a little bit.
When I first started selling these things, when I went to college for a year and then came home. When I first came home, we were buying these mules for $800 and taking them to Arizona and selling them for 3,500 to 4,500. And now I'm about half scared of a $3,500 riding mule. There, that's like the new sale barn mule. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
and the market is crazy, absolutely crazy. Um, I mean, it's people have more money than I know what to do with. You know, the it's just I don't know what the market is going to do in the future. Um, I think it's got to pop. I think it's got to pop at some point. Maybe not like the really, really nice mules that people keep for 2 years, and ride, and people like Lauren Basham, the mules that he rides and he keeps for a while, and he's put a lot of time in. I think those mules will stay high. But these mules that people, are riding for 60 days, I just don't see those holding out.
Mm.
Not for what they've been doing. I know the market's a little softer right now. We're starting to see more mules for sale. Um, we probably have more mules on hand right now than we've had in the past 3 or 4 years. Um, the draft mule market is if you take the Amish out of the equation, there's not a draft mule market. They are the draft mule market. They haven't, I mean, as soon as they realize that, they'll stop giving that big money for them. But, you know, there was between our sale and another sale, the first part, or there's 3 sales right here. The first 2 weeks in January, within like 70 miles of right here, and those draft mules were out of sight. Um, Out of sight. People giving 10 grand for a 3-year-old that you couldn't lead down the hallway of a barn. Um, as soon as those Amish boys realize that, that market's going to go down. Um, but they just all got to get their heads together. And the junk, like the trading stock, I see it getting cheaper. I don't know how it is out there, but the economy is pretty slow back here right now. There's still some stuff moving forward, but people aren't. I don't know if they don't have the money they had used to make, or if they're scared to spend it. But I kind of see these prices coming down just a little, maybe except for the top end. And you're always going to have those people that have more money than they know what to do with, and they're going to buy what they feel like's the best.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's uh, there's not really a major gap right now between the high and the low end. Like
Yeah,
like it's like you're saying, even the stuff that's kind of challenging, not too great, it's high.
yeah,
Um, where there used to be a big difference, it seemed, used to be a bigger gap between the high and the low end. So maybe that'll come back. I don't know. This episode is going to come out beginning of May, so right before a couple of the big sales. Right before the big money sales like Bryce Canyon and Jake Clark's. Those are both big money deals, right?
oh yeah.
But so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out there. Um, but yeah, it's something that kind of bothers me, Richard, is I don't. On one hand, I really appreciate the money that is being out there. Like it's really cool now because you can ride now. You could sure enough ride your mules and make money, make a living at it. There's guys that now can make a legitimate living and provide for families off of this, which is really cool. You sell a couple of those high end mules a year and you're doing good. Like I had. Do you know Brian Mahoney
No, yeah.
from Montana? Anyways, I had him on the show and we were talking about this, and he just and you know he just rides a couple a year and that's his living. I mean, he makes a living at it. It's really cool. Um, on the other hand, I guess what troubles me a little bit is I don't want this to become a rich man's game. I want
Yeah.
people to be able to enjoy the mule. Growing up, like you and I growing up, same age, same generation, like uh everybody had mules and horses in their backyard. And you weren't like the rich guy just because you had a horse or a mule. Everybody just had them around, it was just a thing. But now it's kind of be where, man, you got to have some money because, and the mule is the cheap part anymore too.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the pickup
Yeah.
truck, the trailer, the
Oh yeah.
property, the feed. I mean, it's just, so what's your thoughts on some of that?
I My thoughts on that. Well, I mean, just look at, I've told people that for years. We would be negotiating prices, and I would just point blank tell them, this is the cheapest you are going to get out of it. We were talking about a $5,000 meal here. Um, you know, chalk up chalk up one big vet bill. What's that going to cost you? Chalk up um, these big draft mules. The only reason I know this figure is because we just run some numbers the other couple weeks ago, and those big draft mules, they cost us about $1,500 a year just to feed them. And we are making our own hay, and we are feeding a corn that is shelled off of our place. That's as cheap as you're gonna feed them. And the I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's going to necessarily ever become a rich man's game, but the top, the top end, unless you make it, will, the really fancy ones, I think, yeah, for sure. Either you're gonna have to make it yourself or you're gonna have the money to buy it. Um, they're selling, they're selling colts now for we sold a dun colt the other day at our auction, and it brought $7,600. It was a very nicely bred colt, very nice bred colt. Come out of my buddy out of South Georgia, Ben Lots. They've got a bunch of they could probably 70, 80 brood mares down there, and really, really, really nice colt. That colt 10 years ago would have cost you $1,000, if that. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. I think it might come to the point where if you want something really, really nice, you're gonna have to raise it yourself or you're gonna have to train it yourself. But I don't know. Right now you can still kind of shop around and find some nicer colts.
Mm.
And, stuff to mess with and ride and broke.
What
Um,
about what about on the business end of things? Like so guys, we got a lot of people listening to this podcast, some younger folks that, they're getting into this business. They're trying to get into this industry, Richard. They want to ride for a living somehow. What would be your suggestion for their route to go to be able to actually make a living at this? Would you suggest that they buy something that's kind of started and they tune it up and put some polish on it, then sell it? Do you think they should be raising their own and selling them then, or like, what's the route that you think folks like that should be taking?
it just depends on your facilities. If you don't have any facilities, go pick you up some sale bar mules and find a pack station that'll let you pack for them. Um, you know, it just all depends on what you got. If you've got some acreage and a facility, raise colts. Because right now you can't tell me you can't make money. If you can raise a decent colt out of a really good bred mare, they're 3,000 and up. You know, so you can make some money doing that. But just for some young kid that um, doesn't have anything, just getting started out in life, 18, 19 years old, um, find somebody and go work for them that's in the industry. And, a lot of these packers and stuff, they're jumping up and down for help.
Mhm.
Um, if you could figure out a way to scrape up a money for a riding animal and a couple pack meals, you go work about anywhere you want to, I'd say. And get those mules broke, they'll take care of you and keep you fed and watered. And then once you get those mules broke, start selling them and replacing them. Um, but it's, it's just the equine industry kind of, it falls underneath the farming industry. And it's just really hard to get started if you don't already have a toehold in it. You have to find somebody that's willing to help you, that's willing to mentor you, that's willing to put their name with yours. If you
Yeah.
know,
It's something interesting with that is like when I was growing up and stuff, I mean, you know, uh, we'd go work for free. Like
yeah,
you go work to learn. You
yeah,
don't get paid, like you don't get money. There's so many ranchers, growing up that I worked for. Yeah, I didn't make any money. I was glad when they actually just fed me some food.
all right. That's what I
I
was getting
remember,
at the pack stations.
yeah, I remember I helped one guy, one summer and and I was 14, okay, and it was not for pay. This wasn't a paid gig. I took my mule, my gear. I didn't have a truck or trailer. Obviously, I'm 14, and I went out there, worked for him, and I didn't account for the whole eating thing. I remember going out there working all day, and then I'm like, I'm really hungry. Like, and he's like, all right, well, we'll see you in the morning. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And he came back later to check on me, and he's like, "Oh, you got any grub?" I'm like, "No, sir." He's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, well," and he brought me some leftovers,
yeah.
from their dinner, and that was it. And I just remember like, "Man, I just, like, I hope I eat here." But but I get a lot of people that will contact me wanting to come work for me. They want to make money. And learn. And I don't have that ability. My business is not at that point to where I can have a bunch of employees or anything like that. It's just my wife and I, right? And but it's just interesting the differences. I would have never really asked for that when I was growing up. Can I just come work for you just to learn? I think kids need to get that. I think there's a little bit of entitlement. A lot of these kids want to make money right off. Hey, find somebody to mentor with and just say, "Hey, I'll come work for you. Just let me be around you. Let me learn, let me get some knowledge, and
Oh
and
yeah, for
trade that."
sure. For sure. We haven't had anybody call an intern in a while, but we used to get calls on that. And you know, there was never anybody around here, so we'd have to find them a place to live and all that. And by the time you put somebody up, by the time you put somebody up, feed them, make sure they've got a dry place to sleep and warm and cold and all that good stuff. If they don't have an idea of what's going on, you can't afford to pay them at all. It doesn't matter what they're doing. But we never really got into the whole intern thing. Um,
Yeah, there's a difference. Like in my mind, okay, if you're gonna pay me, if I come work for Richard Reese today and you're gonna pay me, I need to be bringing value to your
oh,
business.
absolutely.
I need to be, as an employee, I should be giving to you, adding to your business, helping you make money as an employee. So the intern thing, it doesn't work that way. No, the
Mhm.
interns are taking, right? The interns are taking that. And hey, let's face it, knowledge is money. Knowledge is valuable. And so yeah, when you're taking that from somebody, you gotta be considerate of that. And as soon as they can add value, like you're saying, hey, you know something, and now you can actually ride this mule for me, and you can add value to that mule. Okay, well now you're worth paying.
Yes, sir.
But until there's plenty of people that I know if I let them ride my mule that they're taken from the mule too. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, for
So
sure.
they got to be adding value to be able to make money. And that's a that's interesting things. I get a lot of requests for interns and things. And I've had interns. I've had some great interns too. I've had some interns that did come out and I have given them some extra money. I'm like, hey, I appreciate you. You've helped me out here. Good job. And that makes a difference.
Yes, sir. And a lot of times when these guys get going, like these young guys get going, as soon as they know just enough to get them in trouble, they leave.
Yeah.
They're gonna go do it themselves, and which that's
Yeah.
fine. But um, if somebody's out there wanting to do this for a living, you at least need to you don't leave too early. I think we see a lot of people, not necessarily with us, but with other people, they want to leave too early because they've learned everything they know. They're gonna then they just they get too overly confident too quick, and they just kind of decide they can do it better on their own, and they go out, and then the grass isn't always greener on the other side, type thing. We see that quite often.
What's that saying when you know a little bit, you think you know everything, and then at some point when you know everything, you think you know a little bit. So,
Yeah,
it's like, and I can relate to that. There's a point in my life, when I was working for my dad, training for him and everything, that I'm like, I know how to do this. Like I want to go do my own thing, and you think you just rule the world, right?
yeah,
And then now, uh, which most people would consider me a expert, whatever that means. I feel like I don't know nothing. Like I feel like there's so much more for me to learn. I'm like, man, I don't know anything anymore, you
I
know?
get humbled on a daily basis.
Yeah, mules are good at that too.
Yeah.
Mules in the mule business are good at that.
Oh yeah. We had an Amish kid. Hey, I've known him my whole life, and he'd left the Amish for like 6 months, and he's got joined back now. But he called me one day and said, "Hey, I need work bad. I ain't got nowhere to live. I need work today." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, before I hire you, I'm gonna call your dad and talk to him because I didn't want to burn any bridges in that Amish community." So I talked to his father, and I said, "Hey, um, I I did not reach out to him. He reached out to me. Um, he wants a job. You want me to hire him? You want me to leave him alone? What do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, I want you to hire him." So he came and worked for us, and he came and worked for us, and he was making good money. He was training. He always had two outside colts he was riding. By this time, he had two other Amish kids that had left the community that just showed up at our house, which we handled that the best we could. But he was making some really good money. He was riding on percentages and stuff like that, and he came to me one day and said, "Hey, there's a guy out of Missouri that's want me to ride colts for him." So that's fine. Just you can have two here. That's what we've got extra stalls for. So you know, he said, "Well, he's wanting to pay me $1,000 a 30 days to ride him." I said, "Well, that's great to buy." I said, "That's great." And he's like, and then finally he come out and finally told me, he said, "Well, I've got to move to, I'm moving back to Mayfield, Kentucky. There's a barn over there I'm renting. This guy's going to put 10 in it a month at $1,000 for 30 days." And he said, "I just can't pass that up." And I said, "You're right. You can't pass that up. But that's 10 grand a month. And I don't know anybody in the mule industry that buys and sells that can afford 10 grand a month to pay you to ride 2 year olds. So just keep that in mind." He went over there and that guy sent him like one or two colts, and then he never sent him anything else. And by this time we'd already
Mhm.
hired somebody else, and this guy, he couldn't come back, and he was just kind of stuck back over there in limbo. He didn't use any common sense, but we run across stuff like that quite often.
Yeah, and those things are part of, I guess, for those individuals, it's part of learning.
Hmm.
We've all made dumb choices and mistakes.
Absolutely.
And the mule industry is a little bit unforgiving for some of those mistakes that you make. It's challenging to recover sometimes from those.
You can't breed them and overcome them. You can't raise colts out of them if you buy a bad one.
Yeah, it's tough. So how what's the future of Reese Brothers Mules looking like? What do you see coming for your family? Are your kids gonna follow in the generational footsteps and like what's going on with the future, you think?
I hope they do. I'd hate to see it die with my generation. Um, it's hard to say. Um, we'll still be here. We um, the traveling, in this industry you have to travel, and my wife, she has a great career, and with two young kids, it's just hard for us to travel. So hopefully when they get a little older, we can go back out and start going back to these sales and these events and stuff like that. But right now we're just kind of focusing on their kids and making sure everything's good on the home front. And we're still selling, like I said, we're still selling. I'd say we sold probably 150 or so last year. We're still selling mules, and those would all be, that's not going through the auction or stuff. That would be their private sales and contracts and stuff. Um, I don't see it going anywhere. Something bad, crazy would have to happen. You know, um, I'm fixing to. I've kind of taken a back seat to riding the past couple years, but we're fixing to get back to riding and some myself. We've had some good guys working for us, and we've still got a good guy. His name's Ethan Hall. He's a good kid. Hopefully he'll stay around for a while, but I don't know. we're not traveling, like I said. My dad, it's hard to get him off the farm, and I don't have any desire to be away from the kids, 2 weeks at a time. So that's just not going to go. Um, but maybe when they get older and they can hang in there for a 40-hour truck drive, we can come back out west with them and stuff. But it's just
That's
too
tough.
much on right now.
Yeah, it's tough. We we know the deal with that, man. My kids have grown up on the road, and
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of sacrifice,
yeah.
to do that. It's challenging. And now that my kids are getting older, it's getting even harder to get out on the road. Because
Oh,
now
don't
they
say
got
that, Ty. Don't say
man, well
that.
they got yeah, man, they get friends, and then
Oh yeah.
they got their cousins and grandma and grandpa and uncles and aunts and all the family, and then they get involved in different things, like Ellie, she's in 4-H, and she's got young women's and all kinds of little things that she's into now. So it's yeah, it's interesting how that plays out. What about your so what about your dad and your uncle? Are they still in the middle of the business? Are they, or are you kind of taking the reins there? How's that going?
No, my uncle retired. He retired 5 years ago. He retired fully from the mule sales. I guess probably 8 years before that, he retired off the farm. Um, so I got his half of the Reese Brothers Meal Company and Greenwood Farms, and then um, now it's me, my sister, and my father are in on the mule sales. Um, but now Rufus, he's still he's still in it. He's he's on the phone constantly talking to somebody about a mule. Um, but yeah, he's um, no, yeah, where everything's still the same. Just my uncle. I'm trying to think what year it was. I was probably, I guess, whatever 8 years ago was. He he just decided he was done. He wanted to be out and do his own thing, and he quit farming. And then when we had our, you could tell he wanted to make it. He wanted to kind of end his career in the mule industry when we hit the 100-year mark on our auction. And after that, he was done with the auctions. But they'd done it their whole life. He was just kind
Mhm.
of over it.
Yeah, that's quite the career. That's pretty cool.
No.
Your dad and your uncle, good men. I appreciate both of them very much. So, um, what do you guys got for auctions these days? What's coming up?
We just had an auction the 11th of January, and that's more of our colts and our draft mules. Um, our next auction coming up will be April the 24th and 6th. Um, it'll be our riding mule special. It'll be the one that you came back to a couple years ago and did the clinics at. Um, we're expecting 100 mules or so in the early consignment, maybe 200 total. We'll sell mules in there anywhere from, I don't know, 22 or 3,000 down to just, just whatever pack mule price is. Um, but we have a good selection there.
So how many sales you guys do a year? You
We
got the
have
colt
two.
sell, ride and sell, and that's it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we used to have five, and we weren't getting the numbers. We'd have one October, November, January, February, and March, and then we cut down to three sales a year: November, January, and March, and we still weren't getting the numbers. We were getting a lot of junk. People didn't want to carry over in our November sale, and prices weren't holding because at that point in time, all the outfitters are still in the back country, and the Amish are in the process of stripping tobacco. So the prices weren't holding for our November sale. So we decided to get rid of that one and stick with our January and our spring sales. Um,
Awesome.
yes, sir. But historically, we always had three up until we historically always had three until probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You guys do a good job. You guys are, I mean, everybody knows, they might not necessarily recognize Richard Reese, but they all know Reese Brothers Mule Cells. You could say that because I'll say,
Yeah.
I get calls all the time about people wanting to find a mule, and and if they're from your part of the country, I always send them to you.
Oh yeah.
And, I'll
We
say
appreciate
Richard
that.
Reese, and they're like, okay, Richard Reese. I'm like, you ever heard Reese Brothers Mule Cells? Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a household name in the mule industry, and you guys have done a great job, and you guys got a lot of integrity and a great reputation. So it says a lot for your family. It's pretty cool.
We try. It's hard at times, but we try. uh,
Yeah, man. Well, Richard, I appreciate you coming on. And at the end of all my podcast episodes, I like to ask for a word of advice. Now, you've already given a lot of good advice for this, buyers and sellers and stuff, but what's a word of advice for people going through this thing called life? What would you like to tell somebody listening to this episode today?
Ty, that's a hard one. I'm not good with words. Ty, I don't know. I don't know, Ty. I've been thinking about that the whole time, and I just don't really know what to say. Just got to do the best you can do, and just treat people fair and honest, and let the cards fall how they may.
I think that's good, man. And you've always done that. I've been around you quite a bit, and you've always been good about that, treating people fair and honest, and it's a good thing. So I think that's good advice. It's good advice, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Richard. It's been awesome, man.
Well, I thank you for having me, Ty.
Yeah, you've been on my list actually for I think 3 years. It's just, I record these in the winter. Usually record my guest episodes in the wintertime when I'm home.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to fit them in. So, anyways, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and appreciate the information in the chat. And I hope my listeners take note of that. Those pieces of advice about selling and buying mules. And where can my listeners find out more about your sales and about what you do? Where would you send them to?
I would send them to Facebook. Reese Mules or Tennessee Mule Sales. Um, that would be we we don't do a lot of advertising, like our personal stock. Um, I just don't like, you know, answering 20 questions and then never hearing back from them again. Um,
Mhm.
so best way to find out anything that we have, my phone number 615-943-6375, and just pick up the phone and call. If you want any information on our sales, that would probably be Facebook, and you can go to Reese Mules, or you can go to Tennessee Mule Sales. Um, and that's if you want any sale information, that's the best. But if you want private sales, that's just best to call my phone. Ty, one time we had like 30 or 40 crossbred colts we got out of Canada, and they were big, strapping, pretty horses. And I posted them one night at 9:30 at night, and the next morning I woke up and I had like 150 something messages in my inbox. So I stopped what I was doing that day, and I replied to every single one of them. I carried on the conversation as long as they wanted me to go. Went and got more pictures of horses, did everything. I did not sell one horse off of Facebook. I had one Amish guy show up to my house and counted me out money in $100 bills for the 40 head, or for the 20, or we sold them in groups of 20. So I don't,
Yeah.
I, Facebook's not my friend when it comes to selling animals and stuff like that. So you
Yeah.
want to talk about mules or horses, just pick up the phone and call.
Heck yeah. Well, that's awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Richard. And thanks to all of our listeners out there. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review on Apple Podcast or on Spotify, I'd be really grateful. Um, and a huge thanks to all of our sponsors that make this episode free for you guys to listen to. We got Roman Home Tents, Colt Saddlery, we got Mules and More Magazine, Diamond W Enterprises, and Western Mule Magazine. We appreciate their support and all they do for us. If you guys run into them, tell them thanks. And if you get a chance, be sure to look up Richard, Reese Brothers, Tennessee Mule Cells. Check them out. They are amazing people. And with that, you guys, God bless you, and we will see you down the road.